What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here with another Week 12 college football preview for a giant weekend of college football that we have. As we get down to these last 2 weeks of the season, everything is on the line in almost every game we preview, and nothing's different this weekend as we have Alcorn State traveling to the vet to take on Jackson State, a 1 p.m. Central Time kickoff in a game that will be live on ESPN Plus. And this is one of the biggest rivalries in the state of Mississippi that we have going down this weekend, and it has SWAC championship implications and should be another story chapter in the long history of if there's been like so many names. You got what, the Capital City Classic, the Soul Bowl, and now the SWAC Classic, I believe is what they named it this year. Regardless of the name, a long storied history, and this game is filled with SWAC championship ramifications, a potential undefeated SWAC season for the Tigers, and you have everything on the line this weekend. You have two great teams matching up this weekend, but let's set the table and then get into some keys of the game, matchups to watch, things like that. But starting with Jackson State, they entered this one 9-1, 7-0 in the SWAC, and they are riding a 7-game win streak that stretches back all the way to mid-September when they lost a close game to Louisiana Monroe. But the Tigers have already clinched their spot in the SWAC championship, and Coach Deion Sanders and Jackson State are looking for their first undefeated season in the SWAC since I believe it was 1995. Just to put that in perspective, I wasn't even born yet. So, this would be the first undefeated SWAC season that they've had in a long, long time. So, I would imagine Jackson State, the fan base, is going to come ready for this one. I've heard reports that the stadium is just about sold out for this one. So, I'm just going to imagine it's going to be absolute chaos in Jackson this weekend. Now, on the other side for Alcorn, they enter at 6-4, 5-2 in the SWAC, and they are coming off a giant and extremely important win over Prairie View last weekend that kept their SWAC championship hopes alive. And they have to win this game to have a shot at the SWAC title. If they lose this one, they are eliminated from the SWAC championship. So I'm expecting Fred McNair's squad to come in guns a blazing in this one. I'm expecting both of these teams to put everything out there. So that's why this matchup is going to be one of the most hyped of the weekend. Now, you look at this rivalry, man, it dates back to the late 1920s. There's been some huge matchups. Jackson State officially holds the lead at 45-29 with one tie, but Alcorn has technically won the last two matchups unless you want to include the forfeit win that Jackson State got in the spring. And they've won five of the last seven matchups, with the last Jackson State outright win coming in 2017. So we've set the table, man, and I'm so pumped for this one. But let's get into the keys of the game. We'll start with Jackson State. If by chance any hope here that TC Taylor is listening to this show, please put the ball in Shador Sanders' hands. There's no other key that's needed. You're not great at rushing the ball. Your offensive line doesn't excel in that area. So put the ball in Shador Sanders' hands and let him be a playmaker. He hasn't shied away from the moment. He had a defining moment last week in the last 7 minutes of that Southern game that really is going to go down as one of the defining moments of his legacy at Jackson State. So why do anything different? Why take the ball out of your leader's hands in a game like this? He's been one of the best freshmen in the FCS this season, and Alcorn at times has struggled with their pass defense. Over 225 yards per game allowed, at sixth in the SWAC. For me, Jackson State has the advantage there. So give the ball to your talented freshman, tell him to go make some plays for you through the air. And for me, I think that has to be the key for Jackson State. When you look at their pass offense, is second in the SWAC, only behind Alabama A&M, who just throws the ball all over the yard. But you look at Shador in particular, man. What can I say differently that hasn't already been said on every other SWAC channel? Completing almost 70% of his passes, 25 touchdowns, over 2,600 yards. He leads the SWAC in efficiency, completion percentage. He's second in touchdowns and yards. This guy has lived up to the hype and more for Jackson State. And there's times where if they had any other quarterback outside of Shador Sanders, they wouldn't have won the game. I don't think they would have won last week without Shador Sanders. So for me, he has to be the focal point of the game plan week in and week out. The wide receivers are talented, but you have to give Shador a lot of praise for his pocket presence, his decision making, and hit where he places the ball in tight coverage. And you got to give him a lot of the credit for what Jackson State has been this year. Now, the wide receiving core might be down a man this weekend. There have been reports. I've heard from a parent of another player that Malachi Wadman is suspended this weekend. I don't know if it's for the whole game or just a half. We'll have to see. But Wadman's absence will be huge. When you look at what Wiseman was bringing to Jackson State, they're deep. They have guys who can go catch the ball. But Wadman was that game-changing playmaker at the wide receiver spot with 11 touchdowns, over 480 yards receiving. He was the big-time guy. And last weekend, Jackson State probably doesn't win that game without Malachi Wadman as well. So that means a bigger role this weekend for possibly Keith Corbin. Leads Jackson State in catches with over 54, over 700 yards receiving, 4 touchdowns. He's going to play a big role, but I want to see Trevante Rucker step up. If Wadman has to take a step back, I think Trevante Rucker and Josh Lanier are probably going to be the next two guys up to step into that role. So I want to see Rucker and Lanier have big games. Rucker can be explosive down the field. He's third in the SWAC in yards per catch with over 21 yards per catch. Lanier's more of an underneath guy, so I think Rucker's going to slide perfectly into the role that Malachi Wadman has left open this weekend. So that's going to be something to watch. And then also, I don't expect Jackson State. I've given up on the harping on this rushing attack. I want to see them at least get 75 yards as a goal, and I feel like 75 yards is should be doable against this Alcorn front seven. Jackson State ranks 10th in the SWAC with only 92 yards per game. So I think 75 yards is fair. If I'm TC Taylor, I want to see what JD Martin can do. I think JD Martin's shiftiness, his explosiveness, and just overall ceiling is higher than some of these other guys. I would give Martin, with a game where you really don't have a lot to lose, you're in the SWAC championship. Let's see what he has against one of these other top teams in the SWAC. Let's see if he can spark something in your offense. Santee Marshall and Pickett have kind of been the two main guys for Jackson State, but I want to see what JD Martin can do at running back this weekend. I really hope we get to see it. But my challenge for Jackson State is just so you can keep Alcorn honest with their defense, give me 75 yards. I don't think that's too much to ask. I really want to see them have some kind of balance down the stretch. And I think in a game like this where you can throw out the records, I think you're going to need some balance late so at least you can close this game out, especially if you have a lead. Now, for Alcorn, it's clear. If you've watched this game, I know some other channels and some people are saying, well, put it in Felix's hands. I disagree. This D-line's too good. The secondary is loaded. Now, I did also hear that Nugget may be suspended along with Wadman, so we'll see about and I don't know if that's just for the game or for the first half, but we'll have to see there. So they're going to need someone to step up at corner. But for me, Alcorn's strength is running the football. I mean, they have to establish their will on Jackson State, or things could get extremely rough for this offense. When you look at Jackson State's defense, their pass defense is really aided by the fact that James Houston can just wreak havoc. But when you look at their run defense, they've allowed over 100 yards rushing in 3 straight games now, along with 5 combined rushing touchdowns over their past 3 games. So for me, the key for Alcorn this weekend is to run the football. You have to establish your will, control the pace of the game, and keep your defense fresh late in the game, because we saw with Southern, they really fell victim to late in the game, that defense being on the field a bit too much and their offense becoming extremely inconsistent. Alcorn cannot have that happen. When you look at this rush offense for the Braves, man, they've ranked 4th in the SWAC, and they've rushed for over 140 yards in every single conference game this season, and 1 touchdown or more also in every single conference game. And it starts with Nico Duffy and Stafford Anderson. These are the 2 guys that you are going to have to trust to step up in this moment and go make some plays for you. Duffy over 800 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns. Anderson over 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. Both of these guys can be game changers, and each one of them this season has taken over different games. So for me, who are you going to trust to take over in this moment? And I think you can use a two-person system. Keep fresh bodies in there. Get Duffy in there for a drive or two. Get Anderson. Let both of these guys work themselves up and keep those fresh bodies to put pressure on Jackson State's front seven to rotate in and out more, and or let them get tired and wear them down slowly. So for me, Duffy and Anderson have to be the key this weekend. They have to have big games. I'm talking about you have to probably rush for career highs this weekend if you're Alcorn and Duffy and Anderson. You've got to go make plays for your offense. Now, you also got to check out Felix Harper too. You cannot lose track of him if you're Jackson State. He also has 6 rushing touchdowns this year. But for the passing offense of Alcorn, if I'm Alcorn, I know my offensive line isn't the strongest. We're going to get to that. But Felix Harper has to be a playmaker when he gets chances. Because if you keep running and running, Jackson State's going to load the box eventually. You're going to have to make those handful of throws to win the game. You look at the Texas Southern game, it was close because they were running the ball well. But once Jackson State loaded the box, Andrew Body wasn't able to make the plays down the field to take advantage of that one-on-one coverage on the outside and those favorable matchups on the outside. That's what Felix Harper has to do this weekend. He's had a great year, over 2,200 yards, 19 touchdowns, only 4 picks. That's another thing. Cannot have turnovers this weekend. If you turn the ball over against Jackson State, you're signing your own death warrant against this defense because they're, one, going to probably turn it into points, and two, it's just going to wear your defense down in the long run. Now, the other two names you got to watch, the Charles Pringle, CJ Bowler, and I'll say a third name, Jawan Anthony. These 3 guys have to have giant games as well. Listen, if you get one-on-one coverage on the outside, you have to win your matchup. Everyone's been saying this Jackson State secondary is the weakness. We need a quarterback and a wide receiving core to take advantage of it. Alabama A&M couldn't do it because they couldn't protect the kill glass from anything. I mean, they were as strong as a wet napkin. But if Felix gets time, Pringle, Bowler, Anthony have to go make plays down the field. You look at Pringle over 600 yards receiving, 7 touchdowns. Bowler over 600 as well, 5 touchdowns. They can be game changers. And then Anthony's kind of like that third rotational piece that some people just forget, but he can also be a playmaker, and he has almost 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. But if you get opportunities on the outside to make some plays down the field and create some explosive plays, that's going to be key for Alcorn as well. We haven't seen anyone just be able to generate explosive plays against this defense consistently. If you can do that for Alcorn, they're going to have a fighting chance in this game. But if they can't be explosive in the pass game when Jackson State loads the box, I think they're going to be in for a lot of trouble this weekend. Now, for the matchup to watch, I said I would get to the O-line. For me, this is a no-brainer. It has to be the Alcorn offensive line against this Jackson State D line. Because if this O line does not step up this weekend, it's going to be a long day for the Braves. I mean, they have zero chance to win this game if they don't win or at least hold their own in this matchup. You look at the offensive line for Alcorn, they're tied for second to last in the SWAC with sacks allowed with over 27. They're only one ahead of Jackson State for last in the SWAC right now. And it's been a problem this season for the Braves that they've allowed a sack in every game this season and 2 or more in every game but one. And early on, I think the stats are a bit inflated because they did go through some injuries earlier this season, and they've slowly but surely improved, and they haven't allowed 3 or more sacks in over 3 straight games, which is a promising stat. But through the mid part of the season, they were allowing way too much pressure on Felix Harper. And the O line over the past few weeks has really excelled in run blocking, and that's promising going into this game. But when you go into this game, Alcorn cannot. If they give up, if they give up 3, 4, or more sacks, it's probably a wrap. Jackson State escapes with the win. They have to win this line of scrimmage battle for the most part, and Felix Harper has to be mindful that that internal clock might need to be ticking a bit faster because you're probably not going to have the time that you did in some of these other games. So that's going to be something to watch as well. Now, I said the same thing earlier, but what can I even say about this Jackson State D line that hasn't been iterated on this channel or other channels before? The Tigers lead the SWAC in sacks, over 43 sacks in their first 10 games, man. That's insane production. And they have 5 games with 4 or more sacks and 3 games with 6 or more sacks, which is just ridiculous production from this front seven. Now, James Houston, I mean, he's the X factor. I mean, if Alcorn doesn't block him, he's gonna wreck your entire game plan. Now he has 12 and a half sacks this year, 18 and a half tackles for loss, and 6 forced fumbles. James Houston can single-handedly beat this Alcorn offense if they don't step up on the edge. And then on top of that, you have Antoine Owens with 6 sacks, 15 and a half tackles for loss. Niles Gaddy, Devontae Davis, all these guys can be game wreckers if you don't block them. And that's not even including, Aubrey Miller and Hampton at linebacker, who also are effective blitzers. So if you're Alcorn, you have to communicate and you have to pick up, the blitz, or Jackson State is going to just wreck shop this weekend against Alcorn. Now, for my prediction, man, I, you know, I thought they were going to beat Southern last week. I gave them a little bit more leeway than some people did. I thought they were going to beat them by a little bit more, but it was a rivalry game on the road. But this weekend, man, coming into the vet, I'm expecting it to be packed. I expect it to be loud. I expect the environment to be really behind Jackson State, but this is a rivalry game. And if there's a coach I trust to have their team ready, it is McNair and this Alcorn team, especially with a SWAC championship berth on the line. And I really think Malachi Wabin's absence, at least in the first half, could slow down Jackson State's offense a little bit. But I still think Jackson State's D line is too good. I think they get after Harper. I think they slow down the running game in the second half. I still think this is a closer game than a lot of people probably expect. But I have Jackson State winning this one 27, Alcorn 21. So a 6 point win for Jackson State this weekend in the Soul Bowl, the Capital City Classic, whatever you want to call it, a 6 point win, and they get an undefeated SWAC regular season for the first time in a very, very long time. But 27-21 Jackson State, guys, this is one of our SWAC games of the week, so y'all know what to do. Comment your score predictions below. Let me know y'all's takeaway on the game, and if you predict the score correctly, you win our $50 Venmo giveaway this week. So I definitely appreciate y'all tuning in to the Bluebloods, man. We have our Florida Classic preview dropping in just a few hours on this channel. Make sure to check that out. Can FAMU, possibly clinch up a playoff spot this weekend, or will Bethune keep their streak alive? Make sure to stay tuned for that. Turn on your post notifications. And if you're new, smash that subscribe button, guys. And make sure to comment your score predictions below to enter the giveaway. But for right now, guys, the Blue Bloods are out.